My name's Becca Callahan, and I'm 38. Until last summer, I was living a quiet life in St. Louis, teaching high school art, running an Etsy store for custom pet portraits, and staying far, far away from my family's farm out in Rensselaer County. That farm used to be my whole world. I grew up there. 400 acres of soybeans, old barns, and long shadows. My dad, Ron, ran the place like a small kingdom, and in his kingdom, you didn't question him. Ever. When I was 19, I left home for good. I'd gotten into the Kansas City Art Institute on partial scholarship, and when I told him I was going, he laughed in my face. Art? You think the world gives a damn about your sketches? I remember standing there with my acceptance letter in hand, and him tossing it into the fireplace like it was junk mail. That night, I packed a suitcase, took a Greyhound, and never looked back. We didn't talk for 15 years. No phone calls, no holidays, no birthdays. And then last August, out of nowhere, I got a voicemail. Hey, Becca, it's your dad. I'm at Mercy General. Stage 4. Lungs. Don't know how much time I got. I could use a hand around the farm. I must have played it a dozen times. Part of me wanted to delete it. The other part, the tired, guilt-ridden, still somehow hopeful part, booked a one-way Amtrak ticket home the next morning. I told myself it wasn't about forgiveness. I just didn't want to have regrets when he died. I figured I'd stay a few weeks, help with appointments, mow some fields, maybe mend a few fences, literal and otherwise. The house looked exactly the same when I pulled into the gravel drive. Same peeling paint, same porch swing with the one frayed rope. Except now, there were oxygen tanks by the door. Ron looked like a ghost of himself. Down 60 pounds, sunken eyes, still too proud to use the walker properly. Didn't think you'd come, he said. Didn't think you'd call, I answered. We didn't hug. He asked me to stay in the guest house, the old ranch hand's quarters behind the main barn. Fine. I didn't want to sleep under the same roof anyway. The first few days were quiet. I drove him to chemo, cleaned up the farmhouse, even cooked a few meals, though he still complained they were too fancy. It was on the 6th day, over a dinner of chili and cornbread, that something shifted. He put down his spoon, looked across the table, and said, You always belonged here, Becca. It's time to start acting like a Callahan again. I laughed, thinking it was some clumsy attempt at fatherly affection, but he didn't smile. I'm serious. You coming back? It's a sign. This farm needs you. Your blood's in this land. I mumbled something like, Let's just get you through this first, and excused myself. But from that night on, it was like I'd stepped into some weird emotional quicksand. He'd ask me to handle things, talk to the banker, sign for the fertilizer delivery, keep track of the workers' hours. He started introducing me as my girl, running things now to neighbors. And part of me felt good. Like maybe finally he saw me. Until last week, when I walked into the feed store to pick up an order and the clerk handed me a clipboard. Need your signature here, Miss Callahan? Says you're taking over the land lease for the East Fields. I blinked. What lease? The clerk frowned. Says here your dad signed it over to you 3 weeks ago, right before you came home. He showed me the form. My name was on it, except I never signed it. And that's when I noticed something else. Kyle's name, my cousin, listed as a co-manager. I hadn't seen Kyle in 10 years. Next part? I confronted my father that night, and what he said changed everything I thought I knew about why he called me home. Let's just say it was never about reconciliation. It was about a plan, one I was never supposed to outsmart. I drove back from the feed store, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. The paper with my forged signature sat in the passenger seat, mocking me. Kyle Callahan. Of course it was him. He and I were thick as thieves when we were kids. Until high school, when he figured out brown-nosing Grandpa and mimicking Dad got him further than being decent ever did. He was the heir after I left, even though he didn't do half the work. Lazy. Entitled. But always a good Callahan boy because he knew how to play the game. I burst into the farmhouse without knocking. My dad was in his recliner, oxygen tube in, watching some old western. I didn't even sit down. What the hell is this? I slapped the lease form down on the armrest. He didn't look surprised. Just sighed like I disappointed him. You're making this more complicated than it needs to be, he said. I never signed this. You know that. Why is my name on it? Why is Kyle listed as co-manager? He paused the TV, turned toward me like he was about to give a sermon. Because you needed a reason to stay, and Kyle needed a reason to step up. This way, everyone wins. Except I didn't agree to any of it. I snapped. He didn't flinch. You're back on this land. You're working it. Living in the guest house. Eating off my table. That counts for something. Counts for what? My voice cracked. You called me. Said you were dying. Said you needed help. You never said I was walking into some pre-written arrangement. He leaned back, the plastic of the oxygen tube stretching across his chest. It's not always about words, Becca. Sometimes it's about what's owed. Owed? You left. This farm barely made it without you. Kyle held it together. I gave you this chance to come back in. You should be grateful. Grateful. I was sleeping in a moldy guest shack, cleaning out chicken coops, doing the field ledger, and now, apparently, being signed onto deals I never agreed to. But sure. Grateful. I left without another word. Drove straight to the town clerk's office to look up the paperwork. That lease? It was just the start. There were 3 other documents. A family agreement declaring me temporary custodian of property, with Kyle gaining full rights if anything happened to Dad. A power of attorney transfer with my name and a signature that wasn't mine. And get this. A witness statement signed by Kyle's buddy Randy saying I'd agreed verbally to the terms. I stood in that fluorescent-lit office with my jaw hanging open. I hadn't just been used. I was being erased, methodically and legally. When I got back to the guest house that night, the key didn't turn in the lock. At first, I thought maybe I'd grabbed the wrong one. But then I saw the note, taped to the door, scrawled in my dad's jagged handwriting. Temporary stay revoked. You're not part of the plan anymore. No explanation, no conversation, just gone. My clothes, laptop, sketch pads, all still inside. My name was on a lease I didn't sign, but I was being locked out of a shack behind the damn barn. I called Dad's cell, straight to voicemail. Kyle didn't even pick up, just texted. Nothing personal, just business. You should have played along. I drove to the only place open after midnight, the Waffle House off Route 44. I sat in a sticky booth staring at my reflection in a cracked sugar dispenser, wondering what the hell just happened. Then my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. Miss Callahan? This is Jennifer Ruiz, clerk from the county recorder's office. I just processed a deed transfer involving your name. It looked a little off. Can you confirm if you recently sold partial rights to the Callahan farm to a Kyle Joseph Callahan? I nearly dropped the phone. Sold rights? My voice shook. Number I absolutely did not. Jennifer hesitated. Then, you'll want to come down first thing tomorrow. I'm pretty sure someone just stole part of your family land, using your name. And just like that, this stopped being personal. It became criminal. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in my car outside that Waffle House, engine off, phone in my lap, mind racing. The words wouldn't stop echoing. Deed transfer. Involving your name. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't agreed to anything. And yet, somehow, someone had just sold a portion of my family's land. Using my name. By the time the sun rose, I was the first person in line at the county recorder's office. Jennifer, the clerk who called me, met me with a look I'll never forget. A mix of concern and quiet anger. It's not just a partial sale, she said. It's a full transfer of ownership of the west lot. 37 acres. Signed, notarized, and filed yesterday morning. She handed me a copy of the deed. There it was. My name, my fake signature, my alleged consent. And right under it, Kyle's name. Listed as the buyer for $1. $1 damn dollar. Who notarized this? I asked, my voice dry. Jennifer frowned. That's the thing. It's Randy Sutter. Of course it was. Kyle's drinking buddy. The same one who witnessed my fake verbal agreement last week. My hands were shaking. I wasn't scared anymore. I was livid. I drove straight to the sheriff's department, filed a fraud complaint, then called the one person I'd been avoiding all my adult life. My mother's sister, Aunt Marianne. She lived 2 towns over. We hadn't spoken in years, mostly because she refused to play my dad's us versus them game. When I told her what happened, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. Honey, this isn't the first time they've done this. Apparently, when my grandfather died back in 2004, there had been a second will, a handwritten one. That left a portion of the land to Marianne and her son. That will never surfaced. Ron and Kyle claimed they couldn't find it when the time came to probate, but Marianne had seen it. She'd even taken a photo. And when she tried to bring it up in court, it was dismissed due to lack of original documentation. Ron had convinced the lawyer that she was trying to cause drama. I wasn't just the first, I was just the next. That night, I drove back to the guest house, fully expecting it to be locked. And it was. But the lights were on inside. I peeked through the window and saw Kyle, sitting at the table, my laptop open in front of him, sifting through folders. I knocked, hard. He didn't flinch, just opened the door with a smug half-smile. "You're not supposed to be here," he said. "That's my laptop," I snapped. "Temporary housing," he said, leaning in like he was explaining something to a child. "Means temporary stuff. You left it. It's mine now. I lost it." I grabbed my phone, opened the voice recorder, and said loudly, "Kyle Callahan, are you admitting to forging legal documents using my name?" He blinked. And that's when he made his mistake. He laughed. "Forging? It's not forgery when it's for the good of the family. You were never gonna stay. We just moved things along. Got it." That was all I needed. I backed out of the house, shaking, hit save on the recording, and just as I turned toward my car, my dad was standing there. No oxygen tank, just arms crossed. "You shouldn't have come back," he said. "You should have just left it all alone." I stared at him. This man who had raised me, who had once tucked me in and read me bedtime stories about rivers and harvest moons. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. "I came back to help you," I said. "I gave up my summer. I cleaned your house. I drove you to chemo. And you stood by while they stole from me?" He didn't answer. Didn't even look me in the eye. He just turned and walked back into the house like I was a stranger at the mailbox. That night, I slept in a Walmart parking lot with one duffel bag and a pit in my chest I still can't describe. Not just because they tried to take the land, but because they'd never seen me as family at all. Just a placeholder in a story they wrote without me. If you've ever felt that kind of betrayal, the kind that knocks the breath out of you, not because of what they did, but because of who did it. I hope you know this. You're not alone, and it wasn't your fault for trusting them. Some of us were just born into families that never planned to let us grow, but we grew anyway. I don't think I spoke for the next 12 hours. After sleeping upright in my car, parked behind a 24-hour gas station, I woke up to a sun that felt way too bright for what I was about to do. Because if they thought I was just gonna roll over, cry a little, and vanish like I did at 19, they really didn't know me anymore. I drove straight to Aunt Marianne's. No call, just showed up, knocked. And when she opened the door, I burst into tears. Not the soft, polite kind. The ugly, shoulder-shaking, snot-on-sleeve kind. She didn't ask questions, just made coffee. After I caught my breath, I showed her the recording of Kyle admitting everything, plus the text messages and the fake deed documents Jennifer printed for me. She didn't flinch. "We're burning the old rulebook now, baby," she said. "And this time, we're not doing it quietly." She called a lawyer friend, Stacy Whitmore, small-town firecracker. Took no crap and had a personal grudge against Kyle's father over a tractor sale back in '92. Perfect. By noon, we were in her office reviewing my options. Fraud? Check. Forgery? Double check. Unauthorized transfer of property? Triple check. And the kicker? Kyle used my social security number to file financial paperwork for a USDA grant under my name, claiming joint ownership to secure emergency funds for the West Lot. That grant had already been approved. Funds scheduled to release next week. In my name. They weren't just stealing the land, they were stealing my identity. To get paid. Stacy's eyes lit up like Christmas. Oh, honey, they just crossed from civil into federal. We got to work. She filed an emergency motion to freeze the grant funds, flagged the forged deed with the county, and submitted a cease and desist to Kyle, Ron, and their sleazeball notary friend, Randy. Next stop? The sheriff's office, this time with a lawyer in tow and a formal request to investigate wire fraud and identity theft. And while Stacy handled the legal firestorm, I was busy laying the emotional groundwork. I posted a simple message on the town's community Facebook group. Hi folks, some of you may know me, some may not. I'm Becca Callahan, daughter of Ron. I came back to help my father during his illness. What I didn't expect was to have my name forged, land stolen, and identity misused by people I trusted. If you've ever been pushed out of family property or pressured into silence, please know you're not alone. Some of us just decided to fight back this time. I didn't name names, didn't make threats, just told the truth. The comments poured in, some supportive, some cautious, but more than a few started sharing their own Callahan stories. People Dad had stiffed on wages, Kyle had bullied for zoning permits, deals that always seemed to go missing when paperwork came into play. Turns out I wasn't the only one who'd been run over by the family tractor. Then came the twist. That night, Stacy called me, her voice calm but tight. You're gonna want to sit down. Apparently, while reviewing county land archives, she found something weird in the transfer timeline for Grandpa Harold's will, the same will that mysteriously disappeared after his death. Well, turns out it didn't disappear. It was misfiled in a misnamed folder, labeled as an old tax appeal of all things. Inside, a handwritten addendum, signed and notarized, dated 3 weeks before he died. One sentence changed everything. Should Becca Louise Callahan ever return to manage the land, she is to inherit the original family lot in full, bypassing all contingent heirs. Not Kyle, not Ron, me. And because Grandpa's estate had never been fully closed, and that document was now on record, it held weight. More than weight. It nullified Kyle's entire claim to the West Lot. The land they forged was already mine. I sat on Marianne's porch, staring at that sentence until the sun dipped behind the silo. I didn't feel joy. Not yet. Just a hollow sword of justice. If you've ever clawed your way back from being written out of your own story, I hope you know how valid your anger is and how powerful it is when channeled right. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's reclamation. The hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning, and by the time I stepped into the courthouse, I wasn't scared anymore. Not bitter, not shaking, just ready. Kyle showed up in a navy jacket a size too tight, trying to look respectable. Ron walked behind him slowly. No oxygen tank this time. Just that same cold stare I'd grown up with. The courtroom was small, barely 20 people in attendance, but to me, it felt like a stadium. When the judge asked for opening remarks, my attorney Stacy didn't even flinch. She presented the forged documents, the altered grant application, the texts, and finally, the handwritten codicil from my grandfather's will. When she placed that on the table, I saw Kyle go pale. Ron blinked, but didn't say a word. Kyle's attorney tried to argue intent and family misunderstanding. But then Stacy played the audio. Kyle's voice on tape, laughing about forging things for the good of the family. The judge leaned forward and asked one question. Mr. Callahan, is that your voice? Kyle didn't answer. He just stared at the table. The ruling came swiftly. The transfer was void. The land, officially and legally, was mine. But that wasn't the end. The court referred Kyle for criminal investigation, fraud, forgery, and misrepresentation in a federal grant application. Ron was named in the complaint, but avoided charges due to declining health and unclear complicity. He didn't look sick when he left the courthouse. He just looked small. As for me, I was offered the chance to press for damages, and I almost didn't. But then I remembered all the nights I spent in that car, in that gas station parking lot, locked out of my own story. So I pressed. The court awarded a settlement large enough for me to rebuild, more than I expected, less than I deserved. But it was enough. The land was mine, but I didn't keep it. A month later, I signed it over to the local land trust on the condition it be turned into a youth farming program and creative retreat. Let them grow something new on soil that once tried to bury me. Ron hasn't spoken to me since. Kyle pled guilty to lesser charges to avoid jail, but he's now known around town as the guy who got beat by the art teacher. Marianne and I threw a backyard cookout the week after the transfer. She brought the coleslaw. I brought a bottle of cheap wine. When she handed me a little wooden sign, she carved that read, "Callahan no more." I laughed so hard I cried. And that's how I got justice. Not just in court, but in spirit. Not by becoming like them, but by refusing to play their game. I didn't just take back what they stole. I gave it a purpose they never would have understood. Because family might be where you come from, but integrity is where you stand.